guys? What's up? This is the McAllister's podcast. I'm your host, Coleman McAllister, here with another, once again returned, here in the Hawkeye State, the capital, the return of the best. I'm overselling myself. I got to change it up. Somehow. I got to keep it interesting. Wanted to talk about some of the, really the important things happening right now. I think a lot of people are maybe not even distracted. Maybe they're just, in the political landscape, not even really thinking about what's happening locally. And, one of the things that me as part of this show has always wanted to do is, put a spotlight on what's going on here. Like, as being someone who lives in this city, has lived in this state most of my life, I think there are a lot of things that happen here that affect us that we don't even really think about because, we are trained, the media eye has trained us to, only pay attention to certain things, right? Only pay attention to the big news, the big things. Think outwardly, think to the world instead of thinking about what's happening, on your block, in your community, in your city in general, right? So that's why we do what we do here. But anyways, it's something that, obviously it not only affects me personally, clearly, right? No, really, but this affects businesses, this affects communities. There was a place that we were, buying, CBD Delta 9 products from, and they, they are no longer able to sell them. Like, there are going to be so many businesses in the city who, may risk having to shut down because of these restrictions. I don't think this is an accident. I think this is a direct correlation with Kim Reynolds' personal interests. From this article from the Iowa Capitol back in May, when essentially they had the House, what is it called? From the legislative session. These were one of the things that were enacted, and as this episode is dropping today, July 1st, I believe, or yes, yeah. Why don't I look these things up beforehand, Coleman? You fucking. But I think the restrictions that we have already are, extremely ridiculous, especially compared to, when you really look at the fact that you can drive if you really wanted to, if there wasn't risk of, getting pulled over or whatever, if there wasn't that, fear that, you could just go across the border and get legal shit, right? It's even expensive there because they've taxed the fuck out of it. But it's quite astounding how, Kim Reynolds, the person who, ultimately signs these bills, enacts them into law. I get people have the whole debate where they're, the argument where they're like, everybody kind of puts it all on one person, but it's really like the entirety of the thing that's the problem. And they're not exactly wrong, but at the same time, Kim Reynolds is the person who's representing these initiatives. And not only that, but actually putting the finger forth, signing into law, saying these are the things that I'm going to edict in our state, these ridiculous mandates on cannabis, on marijuana. And not even marijuana, really. I mean, these derivatives, these cannabis Delta 9 derivatives that, for anybody who is in the community, right, who is in the legal Iowa cannabis community, knows it's already kind of shit, right? And I don't know exactly what the cap is right now. It's saying, so here's the part that I find very disturbing about this article. The paragraph. The regulations imposed on such products include an age of labeling requirement for people to buy consumable hemp. The new law also adds restrictions and penalties related to the sale, manufacturing, and possession of hemp-derived consumable products, including a limit of 4 milligrams of THC per serving in consumable hemp products and a 10 milligram THC limit per container. So the sentence that's really disturbing. I want to repeat. Penalties related to the sale, manufacturing, possession of hemp-derived consumable products. So not only selling this, but even possessing it. So if you happen to have some left over, right? Not even. Or if you get it in the mail, or if you just happen to, go over to Kansas, not even get I don't know. Wherever you can get weed, if it's not the weed, if it's like the derivative of Delta 8, Delta 9, whatever, if you even get something that's so low grade as that, that's so harmless as that. And this was the justification from her, right? She says she has concerns about law. She said, ultimately, I'm signing into law to protect minors from dangerous and intoxicating products. At the same time, we're taking steps to ensure that children who are resistant to medications and suffer from seizures and other medical conditions continue to have access to consumable hemp alternatives for relief. So, I mean, here's the problem, right? Is that these restrictions shouldn't even be here in the first place. If you even want to make the argument that, sure, let's say that there's this enormous percentage of use in Iowa using THC cannabis products. I mean, and that, let's say that's even true, right? I don't know. I don't know if there's studies. I don't know if that's something that has been actually looked at accurately. That's another problem, right? Like, how much of this is actually accurate information? But you look at states like Colorado, right? Like, as soon as they legalized cannabis, like the rates of adolescents using cannabis dropped significantly. All the data shows that making drugs illegal actually reverses the goal of what they're trying to do. They're trying to make these products so people use them, make these products illegal so people use them less. And it actually creates an environment where people end up using them more. And not only do they end up using them more, that there's more at stake. So not only are they not able to use these products, they can be thrown in a cage. They can be, have money stolen from them in retrospect, from fines or whatever. This is a very dangerous precedent set. I really didn't think that it could possibly get any lower, that they could really that Kim Reynolds would be able to convince anybody in this day and age in 2024 that this could actually happen. I think that's very it's crazy that we're actually there, right? That it actually has once again been chopped down even further. Now, here's the positive of it, right? Here's the underlying positive to this is and it's for places where this isn't the case. I think that's tragic, but I think living in a place like Des Moines, I think the lack of care that is focused around this issue from both people, local cops and like businesses and business owners and just the population in general. Like, I think if you were to walk around and honestly, and people were honestly able to answer, like, what do you think about cannabis legalization? Is it something that really should be illegal, that people should be put in prison for? I mean, especially something that is over this ridiculously low cap for not even, regular cannabis THC, but like a different variable of it, right? As far as from what I understand, at least. But like, if you were to ask, every regular Joe in Des Moines specifically, I would be willing to bet that they would say, no, there's nothing wrong with that. That person shouldn't be put in a cage for that. But it's interesting, right? This is This is exactly why I don't believe democracy works, because there's no reason that we living in Des Moines should have these restrictions imposed that, from a person who may as well, I don't even know, maybe she's not even popular, maybe, not even maybe, I'm sure in my mind that the voters in outer Iowa, their values more aligned to Kim Reynolds, or at least what she's purporting to, right? Or at the very least, they just don't care enough about cannabis to really give a fuck, right? To really be like, okay, like we don't care if, like, amongst her bill, like, amongst all the things that they are passing, which, in this there were positives, right? Like they're supposedly taking measures to restrict the traffic camera situation, which I think is positive. I mean, the less surveillance, the better. That's definitely a step in a positive direction. She also, this is kind of a mixed bag, right? She did chop out quite a few positions in government, which we'll see if this actually. And along with this, she did lower income taxes. So I mean, with this, it'll be interesting to see if this actually does create an environment that is, cheaper for Iowans to live in. Which, the thing that is shitty is there were not even real. I don't even really view it as shitty, but I guess how people can view it as shitty is a lot of the boards that she cut out were for like the minorities or disabled or whatever, right? But I mean, literally, my mind. I mean, whatever. I think that's a useless. It's a pretty useless cause in government in my mind. Like the fact that they really do anything for those communities, I think is kind of, especially for something like LGBTQ. Like I don't really think that there's a lot of precedent to be said or whatever, right? Like the money that's going into that is going into the pockets of the people who are in these quote unquote positions mostly, and then it's dependent upon them to actually produce the work of that, and ultimately they can't, because that's such a vague category of people to help, and it's not really something you can like actually work at. Like the only way you can really do that is you can like select people based on certain criteria and then like give them money. But really all that does is just creates inflation. It just creates the dollar to inflate, which in turn makes everything more expensive and yada, 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 right? Just the end product of any government program. So, I mean, those things are positive. Like it's always a mixed bag, right? But this is just something that's so outlandish, so ridiculous. I mean, feeling like you're living however many decades ago where this was the norm, right? It really seems like this is someone who's just trying to bring that back. Just utterly ridiculous. And another thing that I think is like the potentially even more appalling in my mind. Let me set the stage for this, actually. So I spent time living in South Dakota, like a good, I want to say like a year and a half. And I never lived on the side where this happened, but my ex-wife's family was from the area of Rapid City, and they always talked about this issue where there was this battle between the natives, the Native Americans, and the police in Rapid City and the surrounding South Dakota area, right? To progress an oil pipeline for, through their sacred land, right? And they had a right to that land, by all retrospect, right? Like that was their area that was given to them, right? The fact that aside from the fact that we already took away so much, right? Like that amount that you have given them, you're then going to further encroach on that. It was a ridiculous thing that was, it was a huge battle. There was a huge controversy, and everybody talked about, like, it was a subject that was frequently talked about, with both my ex-wife and her brother and other members of the family, etc., that they just felt passionately about, because they themselves knew natives, And it's just wrong, right? Like it's just wrong for the government to come in and be like, oh, we're going to encroach on your property to, put this thing through your private property, something that is sovereign to you that, should not be encroached on unless you are giving it permission. To just evade that, to just say, hey, we're just going to put a pipeline through your thing no matter what. That was just extremely controversial. It was something that actually, for a brief period, positively, I think did legislatively get repealed. However, when Donald Trump was elected and came into office initially, that was something he completely vetoed. He completely turned the other way, and all the work that the natives had done in South Dakota had been disregarded, and that went forward. And that was actually the day in my mind where I completely fell off the Trump train. That single moment, that was when I was like, I'm done with this guy. That was the clear moment where he showed that he was going to become nothing more than the authoritarian Republican puppet, right? And this, what's happening in Iowa, with the expansion of carbon pipelines, is disturbingly eerily similar to this in a way. Obviously, well, I don't even know. There could be, within this map, there could be native properties that are encroached upon. I don't even know. But, I mean, private property is just being essentially, like this bid, this is from June 25th. The summit's controversial bid this is from the Des Moines Register. I'll just read the article. Summit's controversial bid to build a carbon capture pipeline wins Iowa board's approval. So this is something that got passed very recently in the last couple days, as this is being recorded. This has been a 2.5-year process filled with controversy. And the people who are fighting against this are appealing it. This is, we'll see if this, with the appeals, if that puts any, placement on it. But it would not surprise me if they just, went forward with this right away. Well, I guess what the article said, it was going to begin in 2025, and then it would start to be available for use in 2026. And look, I think the argument for, okay, this is to help people, this is to help the entirety of Iowa, et cetera, whatever. I don't give a shit. I don't give a shit about that argument. I believe in property rights 100%. If you encroach beyond that, I don't give a fuck. I don't think it's right for anyone to say that they can just, unwillingly put that through my property. And here's the thing, right? Like there was, it does look like there was a 75% approval for this. However, who knows how much of that is just due to, either just not being able to think, or just, just assuming that whatever, this is going to help everybody, when, actually there are a lot of, ethical concerns to this leakage. This is something that can, very easily leak into communities or into homes, and people cannot realize it and just die instantly. That does raise that risk, right? That's a very scary thing in itself, that carbon monoxide poisoning and death. And it's just really sad that this is just something that's being encroached. And, like I said, this is with the same group of people, the same guys that is being run by this woman, Kim Reynolds. I don't exactly know if this is something that she signed into law, but at the very least, she is in charge of the entity that is creating all this this prosperity, the opposite of prosperity, prosperity for them, right? I mean, they're the ones that are succeeding in this, right? But the citizens, the people of Iowa, are going through some So there's some serious encroachment, however the fuck you say that. I'm retarded, okay? How, getting your property imposed upon. There are going to be a lot of islands where this is going to happen. Ironically enough, I believe looking at the map, if I remember, actually in the same part of Iowa which is now being flooded. The place that I grew up, right? Actually very sad. I haven't really done a ton of research into it, but like everything I've seen, people have died. Obviously, there's been footage of people and stories of people having to get rescued off of, restaurants and, places like Spencer and Lamar's and Sioux Center, like places that I grew up in, right? Just getting completely flooded. Fucking crazy. I don't know what damage was done to the town that I grew up in personally, but a lot of places in that area, that community that I grew up in, are getting damaged. And, from what I remember on the map, it seems like a lot of places in that same area are almost eerily coincidentally in sync with this disaster. These pipelines are getting approved to be built in those areas, right? Is this a coincidence? I don't know. Is this just happenstance? This is possible. It's also possible that government is doing what it always does, which is whenever there's a disaster, whenever there's an opportunity for something to be done authoritarianly for that pushes either their agenda, their financial pocketbook, whatever, they can do it. If they can find the excuse to take more tax money to fund these things, then they can do it. They're going to do it every time. So, fuck Kim Reynolds. Fuck that cunt. I can't stand that cunt, really. You know what I mean? That's what we do, people. We go for 20 minutes talking about fucking all the Iowa bullshit. No, so I wanted to start out the episode by talking about the things that are actually important, because I think the thing that is on most people's minds, really, is the obvious, right? The debate of the two old men who we both know pretty much everything about at this point, calling each other liars, and something that was just eerily less entertaining. I don't even really want to talk about that much, because I think it really speaks for itself, the whole thing. I could play clips afterwards of people's responses, and some people folding, some people saying, hey, literally just telling you to your face there's nothing wrong with what you did. There's something that just is it's really I've talked about this before, right? Almost like the positive aspect of the day and age that we're living in today, right? Is the fact that we have so much capability to record, upload, and really show the public what's really going on in a lot of cases. That's an extremely positive thing that we have unanimously as the public, we have these tools that we can independently use to help each other, right? And I think there's almost something that's, really positive in this display. I think that's the main thing I want people to come away with what's been going on with the presidential debate, right? Is there something I think really unifying in the fact that I think the response that I've seen more than anything is that people are just over the bullshit. People are just unanimously like, fuck this shit. We know everything about both these people, and the entire debate was just saying, what you just said was a lie. No, what you just said was a lie. And really, a lot of times what they were both saying was a lie, right? And listening to that, you knew that. Look, here's the thing. I was, for those maybe you didn't see, I was going to do... Here's the crazy thing. I was going to do a live stream actually reacting to the debate. However, my webcam happened to just die like instantly. Like I started it, and I think that it might have flickered once, and I kept just like unplugging it, plugging it into different ports, and it just was not starting. I'm like, oh my god, this thing is dead. This thing is actually fucked. So I used my phone. I tried to use the webcam that way. My computer crashed, and I was already late. I was instantly over it. I was like, you know what? Here's the thing, because I was seeing you when you saw the precedent that was already set with how they were running it, with the lack of audience, with the mic cuts. The energy was already kind of sucked out of it, right? CNN was doing it. You're kind of like, you know what? This isn't really gonna be the idea of this never really was the case, but this is more on display than it ever has been before. And I think the people who are going to be able to, at the final stages of this whole thing, right, be able to really look at this and be like, this is bullshit. Like, this might be the final switch for them. But then the fact is you're also just going to find the people who are going to look at this and just be like, no, nothing's wrong. Biden's okay. There's literally a video later, or that was, I saw a couple days ago where Joe Biden was walking onto a stage, and Joe Biden was like, you did so good. And what did Trump say? They literally said lies, lies, lies. There's something that's like very on display Orwellian, truly Orwellian about what's going on. I think just like only giving so much attention to it, I think, is going to be my approach from now on. I think that's a fair. I think there's. I just wonder how much of a point there is in feeding into this. So maybe I should just cut it at that. Those are just kind of my general thoughts about it. My brief general thoughts. One, I always try to end these episodes on positive notes that I can. Another thing I want to just briefly touch upon before we maybe wrap this up. The freeing of Julian Assange. Someone who, back in 2016, kind of around the time that we started talking about, or I retook this episode. I don't know if I started this right. Anyways, back in 2016, when, Trump was, before Trump was elected, when all this controversy was happening, with Clinton, the email scandal, I remember this, just hearing about this whole thing going down. This was really what I think started the tick for a lot of people who like eventually, went onto the Trump wagon and even went like all the way, even maybe are considering him now, right? Especially after this debate. I think a lot of this is because of the things that Julian Assange did, the things that he revealed about government. And I think that's why there's so much opposition. There's always been so much opposition to Julian Assange. I think that is a big part of it at the end of the day, right? Is I feel like if he had done this during Obama or Bush, would it have even been that big? I mean, it could have been, right? I mean, he did really reveal some stuff. Who knows? Maybe he wouldn't have even been heard about if it happened in those days, right? But there's something that about it particularly happening during, the campaign of someone who, at the time was not someone that we thought maybe would be the president, but everyone knew would be the president, was Hillary Clinton. And what the things that Julian Assange revealed, in regards to not only this, but other government secrets, right? It's truly heroic. I really I don't really hear about it because it doesn't really come up, but like if anyone were to ever like in public just say like, Julian Assange is like he's a crook, like, he got what he deserved sitting in that cell. Like I don't know if I could really contain myself in that moment, because I mean he is truly the example, one of the few examples of someone who is an actual hero for the American people, like someone who actually heroically revealed information that we, the public, needed to know about the people who are in office, who are corrupt, etc. And he did this, ultimately serving a lot of time. What? That's 8 years, essentially. About 7-8 years, probably, that he served, maybe longer. And he's finally in Australia, but he's financially ruined, from what I understand. He really should be pardoned. I do think, however, the fact that he's out of prison should be, I think that should be rejoiced. I think that should be something that is, even though the fact that he is probably a ruined and broken man after all this, and that's really depressing. I do think charity is a thing. I do really hope that people, maybe decide to contribute to him in some way. I would even do so if it was possible. It would be possible. If there was a way to do it, I would. Drop in the comments. I'll look into it. Again, I think that's a really positive thing. So I think that's the main thing we should take away from that. Other than that, but 4th of July is coming up this week. I hope everybody enjoys it. Kind of like I said with Juneteenth, I don't necessarily like government holiday. I don't, really have much to say for government holidays for the most part. It's interesting. I'm reading a book now called The Quartet, which is kind of eerily, very poignant for the time of year that we're in. Is talking about basically the second coup, as the author calls it, of the government of the United States, shortly after the Revolution, where it became federalized, where the Constitution was written, and where the Electoral College was put in place. Just a lot of things that set the precedent for kind of this corrupt government that we have today, right? Things that, the people who originally proponent for freedom, right? For all this freedom, for all the, the states for themselves to be self-governed, within a matter of years, completely reverse their angle with a misguided conception of what that would look like. That just set the precedent for all this, all this government tyranny that we experience. And it's just a very interesting portrayal of that. But regardless of that, I do think anytime that there is a removal of government, a decrease of government, who's even to say that even that for federalization at that point was better or worse than what was going on in England? Who knows? But anything that moves in the positive direction, I think, is worth noting, especially in this day and age. It's really kind of weird in a way looking at 2024. There are a lot of things that we're really past the midway point, right? Getting into November, getting into the election, we're going to see what happens, right? This is going to be really, things are kind of tensing up in a way, but at the same time, there's I almost kind of feel like a uplifting, like a weight that's lifted in the fact that I do think people are really kind of seeing everything at face value a little easier, a little better. Pick anything that's happened this last year with the pedo stuff, with Drake, with the election stuff, just seeing this debate and just seeing, how they were at face value. I think I really hope this is a unifying moment. I really am trying to be. I really think that is a positive thing. I really hope everybody tries to think of it that way. Thanks for tuning in to this rant of an episode. It's another solo. This is what we do here. If you're not with the program, get the fuck out, man. We don't care. We don't give a fuck about you. We'll be back next week. I don't know what we're doing. Yeah, my webcam doesn't work, so we're not going to be doing any live streams or anything for a little bit. Maybe we'll get a webcam here at some point, but I don't really know if it's worth it even. I'm down with just doing podcasts. I feel like the game streams are fun, but it's like a whole thing where your computer crashes and it's frustrating as fuck. I get so fucking pissed when my shit just fucking crashes, when everything just, and you're like in the middle of a rant. You're in the middle of a fucking, like, you got a rhythm going. You got that Italian blood going through. You're like, da, right? And then your cat meows and just keeps meowing and meowing and meowing. You have to stop. You have to stop the whole thing. These are the trials and tribulations of my life, people, okay? Feel bad for me. I'm kidding. All right. Have a good night, everybody. Peace.